This is the Committee of Adjustments meeting for the Township of Center Wellington for May 20th, 2021 at 2 p.m. I'd like to ask the committee members if there is any disclosure of pecuniary interest at this time. Seeing none. Okay, thank you. We'll move to confirm the minutes from the previous meeting. Can I get somebody to move that motion, please?
I can move the motion.
Thank you. Can I get somebody to second that?
I can second that.
Thank you, Fernando. And by show of hands, all in favor of the motion? Okay, so that motion is moved. Thank you. On today's agenda, we have two applications to review. The third application has been withdrawn. So we'll move on to the first application, file number A014/2021. Request is being relief is being requested under the Planning Act, Section 45(1), to permit a reduced number of required parking spaces to 18 in lieu of the required 23 parking spaces. In addition to that request, relief is also being requested under Section 45(2)(ai) of the Planning Act to permit an expansion of a legal non-conforming use to permit 3 additional residential units for a total of 15 in an existing apartment building in an R1B residential zone. The effect of both variance requests is to permit the expansion of an existing apartment building with a reduced number of required parking spaces associated with the expansion. Chantal, can you confirm that signage has been posted at the property?
Yes, I can confirm the sign was posted in accordance with the Planning Act requirements.
Okay, thank you. And I see on the line here, we have the applicant and the agent for the applicant. So I'd like either one of you to speak on behalf of the application to provide us with a brief overview and justification.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will speak. I'm Jeff Buseman with Van Harten Surveying. And with me is Eric Van Groothuist, and he's on the line as well. He owns the property. Eric has owned this property for quite a while. It's a building at 410 Hill Street, and it's on a through lot. A through lot is defined as a lot which has 2 street frontages. So in this case, it has frontage on Hill Street, and the building's a little closer to that, but it also has frontage on St. George's Street, and that's where the parking lot is accessing it from. Right now, there's a building of 3 floors where there's 4 units on each floor. The building was built in the 60s. The lowest level is, so I'm going to say, somewhat half in the ground and half above. So it's basically a 3-floor building, and there's 12 units there now in total. I'm always impressed with Eric as a landlord of a number of buildings that he strives hard to provide housing. I'm going to say more affordable and decent housing for people. And this is another one of his buildings that he's, I think, doing a good job. But the proposal here is to take advantage of extra room and build another, I don't know if you'll use the word pod, another sort of an extension of the building, so that there's a building that's similar to the existing one in that the basement floor will be recessed in the ground a bit. There will be 3 floors with an apartment on each floor. In order to protect the windows that are on the south side of the existing building, the intention is to have some kind of breezeway between the 2 buildings so that there will be lights and so forth in that breezeway. So in a way, it'll be an addition to the building, but somewhat disconnected as well. To make this happen, so the one request therefore is an extension of the legal non-conforming use. This property is zoned, this area is zoned R1B, which does not typically allow for this kind of building, but this building existed prior to the zoning bylaw being in place for this, so we call that legal non-conforming, and we're asking for an extension of that to accommodate this addition. The other thing that we're asking for is a relief on the parking requirements. We've calculated the parking requirements to be for 23 spots. We're asking for 18. That's our request. There's been a lot of comments about the parking and concern about traffic flow and so on that have been provided by neighbors and that are out there. The reality is that we're going from 20 spots to 18 in terms of its day-to-day usage. We're removing 4 spots, but we're also removing a shed at the front so that there can be 2 spots added at that location. So we're going down from 20 to 18. The zoning requirement is 23, as I said, but as I mentioned in the planning report, the Fergus zoning bylaw used to have a lower. The previous zoning bylaw for Fergus prior to the Center Wellington one was a lower requirement. I don't know what that requirement was in the past. Eric tells me very clearly that this parking has never been a problem, and he's never had any complaints from anybody on parking at this property. I know when I visited the property pre-COVID times, so that's a while ago, and I think COVID times we're dealing with a lot more people staying at home. I think there were 3 cars in the lot when I visited during the day. Now it's during the day and people could be at work and so on. But Eric tells me that quite a few of his tenants, he thinks at least 3 or 4 now, don't even have a car. And he's not aware of any tenant that has 2 cars. With this expansion, Eric is planning to number and mark the new parking spots better and, quote, have a registration system of the parking spots. So it means each tenant gets assigned a spot. Those tenants that do not have a car will actually get a credit on their rent. So at the end of the day, Eric's going to have a lot better control of the parking, though he's saying, you know, I haven't had any complaints. And when I reviewed the comments for some of the neighbors, they don't really say there's a problem of parking due to this apartment building, because I don't think there is. The other range of comments that we've received is, you know, some comments about the garbage at this place. I think Eric has provided me some insights about the challenges being a landlord or dealing with parking. And maybe, Eric, do you mind for a minute? We talked about this earlier. I'd like to give the floor to Eric for a minute, but then resume after Eric, just to talk about the garbage and what he has to deal with. Is that okay with you, Mr. Chair, that I throw it to him and I'm going to throw it back to me?
Yep, not a problem. Thank you.
You're muted, Eric. Eric, you're muted. Still, you're muted. You know what? Oh, there you go. You're unmuted. There we go.
Okay. Not very good with these things. Usually I do it on my computer. My computer broke. With the garbage, before COVID, we had no problem with garbage except for down at the old market there. Everybody likes to think we're the second Wellington County dump. But since COVID, we've had a lot of people just going around to our properties and unloading, including actually a couple of neighbors that my manager had to explain that they should stop putting their garbage in our bin. And every Friday since COVID started, we've been having somebody driving around to all of our properties with a dump trailer and picking up garbage that people have left for us. It's not nearly as bad now as it was 5-6 months ago. And with the new building, we're going to have it so it's easier for the truck too. We're going to have them drive straight in up against the building. We're going to have a fence on either side. And then on the other side of each side, there's going to be a seating area for the tenants. There's also going to be a breezeway between this addition and the other addition so that we can have covered seating during the rain and stuff. We're also putting a peaked roof on to improve the look of the place. We're going to pave the property. We're going to have 3 seating areas installed. We're trying to improve the property. And when I looked at the amount, yeah, we have at least 3 or 4 tenants that don't even have a car. We have a lot of long-term tenants, a lot of older ones. There was a lot of problems with this building when we bought it. And I think the neighbors would all agree that in the last 10 years, that's been completely changed. We have good clientele there, good, happy tenants, and we'd like to add 3 more spaces. We have a huge demand for tenants and we'd like to add 3 more spots.
Thanks, Eric. That story awakened me to the challenges of being a landlord. So what I like especially about Eric's comments is he plans to have an enclosed area and on the garbage. As already taught, in terms of the future of what this is going to look like, Eric has already highlighted some of the changes that they're going to make. The peaked roof, the seating areas. We've already talked about how we're going to do parking, talked about how we're going to do the garbage bin. The parking's going to be repaved, add curbs to it. And also Eric mentioned to me earlier, adding some lighting to the parking as well. Of course, there'll be the sensitive lighting and so forth. One of the conditions of this application is a landscape plan be provided, and that makes sense, especially with the changes that Eric is planning, and that'll also help to improve the look of the place. And also, when we get to the building permit stage, I'm sure we're going to be providing a site plan, grading plan to address all the engineering, drainage, site functioning of the site at that time. I think, to me, the important parts of this presentation and of this application is, firstly, planning staff provide support for this application, and they provide the opinion that all the tests are being met, and that's important. I think another part is that this project is providing 3 more badly needed rental units. As Eric suggested, the demand is out there. And we have an opportunity to provide more reasonable, or shall I say more reasonable, affordable units. I hate to use the word affordable, but I'm going to say more available to people that makes the apartments will be a reasonable cost. I look at the comments made by the one package provided, and there was one comment about sustainability. In a way, I like that comment to say that, you know, a motto of the mission statement for Center Wellington is a simple one: sustainability. Working together today and tomorrow for a safe, livable, and sustainable community. I think this project provides that, and I'm going to say for 3 more residents or apartments in that we're working together. We have 12 units now. We have a great opportunity to make it into 15. And I feel that with the comments of parking and garbage adequately addressed, I think this project is a good project. And I seek the committee's approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you both for a very detailed explanation and providing all that additional context regarding the property. It's much appreciated. At this time, I'd like to ask if any members of the committee have questions for the agent or the applicant.
I do have a question for the applicants. I was looking at the proposed drawing, and I don't see where the garbage bin will be located or allocated. Because I was looking at the on street view, and I see the garbage bin is close to the road. So I was just wondering, how is that going to work?
You want me to answer that?
Yes, please.
Okay, simple. Right now it's close to the road, and it's going to be, and this is for my own benefit as well, it's going to be up against the new addition, and then there's going to be a fence on either side. And there's for 2 reasons. One is that the truck can just drive straight in and straight out. So it's easier for these big trucks to get in and out from straight in. And the other thing is I'm hoping people feel a little bit more compromised driving in to unload garbage into our bin. So that's why we'd like to move right to the very front by the building. So I know it's a selfish reason on my part, but it's also good for the neighbors because then they won't be seeing it either.
Thank you so much. That actually makes more sense. Thank you.
Welcome.
Yes, Kathy?
So I've walked around it a number of times, Eric. Does the driveway go from one street to the other, or does it stops part way, I think. So will you make the driveway go right through the whole from street to street? Is that what you're talking about with the garbage truck?
No, I'm saying what we're hoping to do on the front of the building is to have another seating area where you get the afternoon sun. But with the garbage truck, no, we want the garbage truck to drive straight into the property and then up against the new addition. So then that way it's off the road, maybe what, 60, 70 feet?
Okay, so then they'll just be able to back out.
That's right.
From the way they came in. Okay, that just clarifies it for me. Thank you.
Yes, Aaron?
Question for the applicant. Have you considered unbundling the parking from the units? So units that don't require parking aren't paying for a parking space, and units that maybe require more than one parking space have the option then to potentially rent some of the excess parking, therefore alleviating potentially spillover onto the street. Especially since you've mentioned that you're going to be offering a credit to folks that don't use parking already.
That's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to, if somebody wants, like, a parking spot is free. If you don't use it, I'm going to give you a $50 credit. And if you want to use it, like if somebody wants a second car or something, then they're going to have to pay that $50. So I'm hoping it becomes revenue neutral, but that way we'll be able to control what cars are on there. We already have a rule in place that you can't have an unlicensed vehicle there. And we're hoping this way would also benefit the people who don't have cars. They're not using the area, so they should get a bit of a gift anyway.
Great, thanks.
Are there any further questions? Okay, we'll move to, are there any questions from the committee for township staff?
Yes, I have one question. What are the the zoning bylaw require to have in sort of this project in terms of handicap parking space and visitors parking space?
Thank you. I can answer that. The what's in place is considered legal non-complying in terms of its layout and however it was developed at the time of building, the construction of this building. So otherwise, I think our bylaw requires that if you have anything more than 3 spaces required, you need 1 to be accessible.
Hey, Nate?
I think we have a computer issue there.
Sorry.
Mariana? Yep, you're back.
Okay, sorry, my connection failed there for a second. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
I can hear you.
Okay. So anything more than 4 required spaces, 4 or more, requires 1 barrier-free space. So that's the current zoning bylaw requirement. But as I said, there is some allowance for a legal non-complying status depending on how that parking lot was initially developed. So that's sort of the answer to that question about barrier-free access.
And is that for handicap and visitor space, or just for handicap?
Sorry, that is what I'm referring to. A handicap space, we refer to barrier-free or accessible. So that only one is required for a parking lot that is between 4 and 25 required spaces. 1 barrier-free.
And it does require a visitor space as well?
So visitor parking, if you're looking at an apartment building use, yes. So 1.5 per unit, and it was raised previously what the previous zoning bylaw requirement was. It was 1.25. So I can just add that based on the previous Fergus bylaw, it would have required 18.75 spaces for the entire development for 15 units. Right now it's a 1.5 spaces required. So the way that is allocated would be 1 per unit, and then the additional would be marked, 50% of the additional would be marked as visitor spaces. So as per the requirement for 15 apartment units, 23 spaces are required, therefore 8 are extra or additional to the 1 per unit, and half of that, so 4, would be required as marked as visitor spaces. However, in this case, they're asking for the reduction to 18 overall. 50% would be, so basically 1.5 spaces would be considered visitor spaces of the additional above 15.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions for township staff? Okay, I'm seeing none. Chantal, do we have any registered delegates who wish to speak for or against the application?
No, we didn't have anyone register, but I will note that we did receive the 2 written submissions that were provided to the committee and to the applicant prior to this meeting. So I will note those in the minutes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to have a roundtable discussion with the members of the committee. Kathy, would you like to start, please?
Sure. I have, since we've gotten our application, I have sort of walked and driven around the area and specifically to look at the parking. I haven't noticed a problem with people parking on the street, and I have never seen the parking lot full. So I think I don't see that there's a problem at this time. Also, I believe that there is a huge demand for rental accommodations in this area, and particularly to have a little bit bigger apartments that will accommodate families, I think is a really good thing. Because people can walk from there downtown, or to be able to get milk or whatever they need, I think that I can let the parking go. So I want to say that I think that Mr. Van Grutheist has really kept up the properties that he has purchased so that there's no garbage lying around, there's no broken down vehicles. It looks as though he is doing his best to maintain the properties in an appropriate manner for the people who live there. So I don't have an objection to this application.
Thank you, Kathy. Fernando?
Yeah, I really like the idea of adding extra rental units in town. So there's more availability for people out there. I was really concerned about the garbage ban, but the applicant quite he answered pretty well the what I was asking for. I think it makes a lot of sense to have the garbage bin where he's supposed to, where he's telling us to put it on. Another concern was the parking, but in reality, I think many people are opting out to have a car or 2 cars. Some people should just stick with just one. So I don't think that's going to be a big issue. So overall, I don't have a particular concern at this moment with this application.
Okay, thank you, Fernando. And Aaron?
Yeah, I agree. It's minor in nature. No concerns.
Okay, thank you. I'd just like to add that, yes, similar to Kathy, I've driven by the property numerous times, different times of the day, just to get a sense of the current parking arrangement. And I feel that some of the concerns raised by some of the neighbors are probably concerns relating to events that are infrequent. And from my observations, under the context, during COVID times, was that there was just a handful of cars in the parking lot at the time that I've been there. So for me, the big concern was parking, and I don't think that's going to be a concern moving forward with the reduced amount of spaces and the additional units. So I'm also in support of the application. Okay, Chantal, could you read the decision in support of the application, please? Chantal, you're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry, I was just wanted to start out by saying that I've had to break the decision into two sections because the relief is being sought after two different sections of the Planning Act. So bear with me when I read it. That in the matter of application for minor variance for relief from the Township of Center Wellington zoning bylaw 2009-045 as amended, section 5.5.1, table 5A, permission be granted to permit a reduced number of required spaces, parking spaces to 18 in lieu of the required total of 23 parking spaces. The effect of the variance is to permit the expansion of an existing apartment building with a reduced number of required spaces associated with expansion on lands described as 410 Hill Street East, Plan 55, Lot 120, south side of Hill Street East, Part Lot 120, north side of George East, Fergus, Township of Center Wellington, subject to the following condition: that a landscaping plan be submitted for approval by the Director of Planning and Development at the time of the site plan approval to ensure sufficient screening of the rear addition for adjacent properties is maintained. Existing trees should be protected to the greatest extent possible. Secondly, that in the matter of application for minor variance to allow an expansion of a legal non-conforming use as per section 45(2)AI of the Planning Act RSO 1990, permission be granted. The effect of the variance is to permit the expansion of an existing apartment building to permit 3 additional residential units for a total of 15 units on lands described as 410 Hill Street East, Plan 55, Lot 120, south side of Hill Street, Part Lot 120, north side, George E. Street, Fergus, Township of Center Wellington.
Okay, thank you. Can I get somebody to move that motion, please?
Move it.
Thank you, Aaron. Somebody to second?
I can second.
Thank you, Kathy. And by show of hands to approve the motion, all in favor? Thank you. So your application has been approved. There is a 20-day appeal period, as you both are well aware. We wish you luck in the project, and there's no doubt that it's going to be a success. So thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Kathy,
Chantel, is the address 410 Hill Street? I think that you said St. George, but is the property based on Hill?
I have it at 410 Hill Street East.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm because I think you just said St. George, or maybe
Yeah,
that was.
the legal description has George Street in it as well. So when I'm reading the legal, it has George. Probably because of that through lot, it has been maintained that way. But the actual municipal address is 410 Hill Street East.
Thank you.
okay, we'll move on to the next application on the agenda. This is for a sign variance. The file number is S01/21. The property is located at 843 Tower Street South in Fergus. And the request for relief is to permit a drive-through menu board with a maximum size of 5.2 meters squared in lieu of the maximum permitted size of 4.1 meters squared. The effect of the variance is to permit the replacement of an existing drive-through menu board with a new menu board as required by the franchisee, and that is A&W Restaurants. Chantel, can you confirm that signage has been posted?
Yes, the sign was posted in accordance with the Planning Act. Thanks.
Thank you. And I see we have the agent on the line. Mr. Clark, I'd like you to speak at this time regarding this request. Mr. Clark, maybe you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so basically we've been hired by the franchisee to replace the existing drive-through menu board with a new spec'd menu board that comes from like head office. It's just a standardized menu board that they permit all the franchisees to use. So I guess, and like I understand it's larger than the existing one. So we in the process had to apply for a variance.
Okay, thank you. Do any members of the committee have a question for the agent? Yes, Aaron?
Is that board digital or is it backlit somehow? I'm just curious because I know that there's some medium density residential that look down into that lot. And
Yeah,
if there
no,
would be any light pollution.
It's no, it's not digital, it's backlit. There's just LED strip lights behind well, they call them a Duratran, which is just their advertising for the items that they sell.
Okay, so it's not like changing images and flashing. No. Okay.
No.
And shut off at night? Do you know?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions from the committee for the applicant? Okay, seeing none. Are there any questions for township staff at this time from the committee? Okay, also seeing none. Are there any registered delegates, Chantel, who wish to speak for or against the application?
No, there isn't, and I didn't receive any written submissions in objection or in support of the application.
Okay, thank you for confirming. We'll move to have a roundtable discussion and we'll start with Aaron.
No concerns.
Okay, thank you. Kathy?
I don't have any concerns. I have a question. Well, I guess my comment would be, when do we say enough already for these huge signs? Whenever they add menu items, they want a bigger sign. So how do you then say, okay, already that's, you have to take some off to add some, or like, I just have a concern that the signs are getting so massive out there on the highway, you're not going to be able to see the buildings behind them. And it's going to it's so distracting when you're driving, and it's just like eye pollution. But is there any way that you can, I guess it's a concern that I have, that's all.
Well, maybe to provide some clarity there, Kathy, I think this sign is in behind the building, so it's not street facing. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. Yes. It's just it's the drive-through menu board itself. So it's a ground sign that's located behind the building.
Thank you. That makes me feel a little bit better.
Okay, Fernando?
I don't have a particular concern with this application. I live in the area and I actually go to AW quite a lot. And to clarify to Kathy, the sign is in behind the building, so you don't see it from the road. Also, there's another in the other side of the I guess to the drive-through, there's a fence. And at this moment, there are not residential units. So at this moment, I don't think it's and also it's not like one of those LED changing displays. Just I guess this is static. So I don't have a particular concern with this application.
Okay, thanks, Fernando. And yeah, I think this is minor in nature and I have no concerns. Chantel, could you read the decision in favor of the application, please?
Yep, I can do that. Again, it's a long one because of the provisions in the sign bylaw, so bear with me. The committee, in considering this application and having regard for the following, special circumstances or conditions applying to the land, building, or use referred to in the application. Number 2, whether strict application of the provisions of this bylaw in the context of special circumstances applying to the land, building, or use would result in practical difficulties or unnecessary and unusual hardship for the applicant, inconsistent with the general intent and purpose of this bylaw. Number 3, whether the special circumstances or conditions are pre-existing and not created by the owner or the applicant. Number 4, whether the sign that is the subject of the variance will have a negative impact on the surrounding properties. And number 5, whether the variance is desirable for the approved development of the subject land on which the sign is to be erected, do hereby grant permission for a variance from the provisions of the sign bylaw 2013-004 to allow a drive-through sign with an increased maximum size of 5.2 meter squares on lands described as 843 Tower Street South, Nickel, Concession 1, Part Lot 12, Register Plan 61R 10552, part of Part 1, Fergus, Township of Center Wellington.
Okay, thank you, Chantel. Can I get somebody to move that motion?
Yeah, I can move it.
Fernando, and somebody to second, please. Thank you,
I can
Kathy.
second.
Thank you. And by show of hands to approve the motion. Thank you. So that motion is carried and the application is approved pending a 20-day appeal period. So thank you very much, Mr. Clark, for your time today.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we'll move on now to discuss any other business for the committee.
I don't have anything to add. There will be a meeting next month, so that's June 17th. We'll have, I think we have one application, possibly 2. That's everything from me.
Okay, thank you, Chantel. Does anybody have anything else to add?
Question for staff, for future reference, that parking variance that we just dealt with on Hill Street, is there a precedent, or could the committee recommend a condition where the applicant would have to unbundle parking from the units, for example, or assign a certain amount of spaces as visitor, to make sure that those spaces aren't rented out to external people and the tenants aren't assigned and paying for parking spaces that they're not necessarily using? Could those types of things be conditions of the variance?
I think that might be a question for Chantel. I'm not sure the extent of conditions that you can impose that are, I would just say that would be a difficult one to enforce unless the township somehow enters into an agreement with the owner to require that. I'm not sure how that could be enforced. I don't know, Chantel, if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that it might not have been appropriate, like, condition, because we do have to be able to meet it somehow. And so we don't really have a way of regulating parking other than through our zoning. But I think what Mariana stated, perhaps it would be through like a development agreement that would be a requirement, because then we can add those types of clauses in a development agreement that gets registered on title. But using it as a condition, I think it would be difficult to do. But in the future, if you want conditions like that considered, staff can definitely work through them.
I can add just there that it will be going through site plan approval, and we will need a landscape plan. So they're going to need to go through that process where we review it anyway. So I think we can address it at that point. They do need to provide visitor parking of half of the additional parking. So as I said before, 1.5. So 2 spaces would have to be visitor parking and would have to be signed as such. So that's something that would be required at the time of site plan approval. If anything beyond that, I'm not sure if you can revisit the decision again now to add a condition as well, but
it's fine. I was thinking more just about if these types of applications keep coming in where people want to reduce parking and they're trying to justify it through various measures, whether it's adding bike parking or whatever it might be, how does the committee have any comfort that these things will actually happen, I suppose?
So just one other thing I'll add then to that comment is the Healthy Growth Committee is right now looking at various regulation and policy changes for adding attainable housing and rental housing in the township. And that is something that has recently come up and we are discussing. I think we will be reviewing some of our parking requirements in the very near future around that. And so we're very cognizant because we've seen a few applications come in recently for these rental apartment buildings and additions and changes to existing apartment buildings where they have requested such reductions. So it's something that we will look at, and it will definitely be reviewed on a broader scale anyway, so that I think if we do need to make some changes, some reductions in required parking, et cetera, it will be looked at.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, we'll move to adjourn the meeting. Can I have somebody to move that motion?
Move it.
Thank you, Aaron. Somebody to second?
I can second that.
Okay, and by show of hands, all in favor? Okay. Thank you very much. Let's start the long weekend.
Thank you, everybody.
Have
Bye,
a good
everyone.
long
Bye.
weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.